Welcome to CSS Intro Part 2. We're going to be playing around a little bit in the W3 Schools Try It Yourself window right now. Now if you come to the CSS part of W3 Schools, I'll go right from the beginning and go to Learn CSS. And right on the home page that comes up, we're going to scroll down and there's an example right in the beginning here, and it has a Try It Yourself button, and we're going to click on it. And we're going to play around in this window here. Now this is using internal CSS, meaning inside the style tags, it's going to put the CSS declarations. And you can see they have one for body, one for H1, and one for P, which is the paragraph. And if you look at the HTML, they only have an H1 and a paragraph. Body is just the body. That's what's behind it. So there's only two lines of text. You can see right now they have a pale blue color, they have white text that's centered, and they just have this as a paragraph. It's pretty boring, and we're not going to do a whole lot with it right now, but we're going to take this and just kind of work with it a little bit. Now, one thing after looking at your hex color, RGB color, you're thinking, wow, we could just write light blue. Why did I have to learn all that hex stuff? We are going to use hex, so we'll try to use hex as much as we can when we do this. So we're going to be working with this a little bit. Now, right from the start, what we can do is we're going to change this background color. We're going to make it kind of a warmer, more of a cream color background instead of this blue. I'll move this over a little bit because we don't have a lot going on here right now. And to change that, now notice that they're basically targeting body over here. Now we'll talk about inline styles because we might even try an inline style here just to get the hang of it. And for example, let me just put an inline style here right now. I'm just going to go H1, and what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to go style equals, and then in quotes, this is where you'd put your declaration when you'd use an inline style. So if I did H1 style equals, I'm going to do something called text align. And I'm going to do it, I'm getting it from here because remember they did text align center. I'm going to do text align, and I'm going to do a colon, and I'm just going to do left, and I'll do a semicolon, and I'll finish my quote. Now this is an example of an inline style. We're not going to use this a lot, but I just wanted to point this out just as long as we're here kind of playing around. You can put a style right in here, and it says H1 style text align left. Now if I run this right now, you can see what happened. It moved it over. And you might say, well, what happened to this one? This one said text align center. Well, this one, an inline style, will override an internal style because it's closest to the element. You have your browser default, you can have an external style sheet, but whatever's closer to the element is going to take precedence. So even if you're telling it to be center here, if you actually put it right here, it's like you're getting right next to it and telling it to do it to that specific one. So it'll understand this style more than it will this one. It's using this one because it's closest. So inline styles are the ones most direct. So if you ever had to override something just for one particular situation, you can use an inline style. And again, just to point it out, inside the element you would actually put style equals, and then you would put the declaration inside the quote, and you could put multiple ones there. So let's just say you wanted to put color, and remember color changes the font color even though it doesn't say font color. Let's say I just wanted to make the color red. If I really want red, I should do the pound sign and I should do FF0000 because we know in RGB using hex, if we had the R channel, which is the first two digits, that would put the red all the way up. It would keep these down to 0, and that should make it red. So I'll put a semicolon here and I'll run it, and you can see that makes it red. So we can put two declarations inside. You can put as many as you want, but you could see what would happen. It would start to get really kind of cluttered in here. It would be hard to see the HTML elements anymore. It's just not an efficient way to do anything. So I'm going to just wipe this out right now, but just keep in mind that's called an inline style. And I'm going to wipe that out right now. So if you really wanted to make changes, we would do it here in the H1. But before we do that, let's change the background color of the page. I'm going to get rid of this light blue. And we're going to use hex since we just learned hex in our previous video. And I'm going to start off with, since it's going to be a very light color, I'm going to start off with FF. And we know what that is. That's white. So if they're all three colors, the R, the G, and the B are turned on right now, if we wanted to make it kind of a cream color, it would probably have a little bit of, it would kind of be yellow. Now if I put this one at 0, 0, remember that's yellow. On the other video, if you had the R and the G up all the way, that made yellow. So there's a yellow background, but that's kind of really harsh. So if I put this one kind of up higher, now it's down at 0 right now. If I put it down, what's down from FF? Well, there's EE, and that's real pale. And I could put it down a little more. Maybe I could take it down to D. And that's kind of a nice cream color. I could even go one more. If I took it CC, it would start to get more yellow as I go. I think I'll leave it at DD. So we're just replacing that, putting a cream color. Now it makes that hard to see, so we're going to change that. And what we might do with that H1, I'm going to keep the color white, and I'm going to replace this. I'm going to do FF, 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 and make sure it stays white. I'm also going to give it a background color. Now, you don't have to type this over because we have background color right here. I'm going to copy this, and I'll put it behind here, and I'll say background color. Now I'm going to change this background color, and I'm going to give the background color of this H1 a blue color. And there's another reason why I'm doing this, because I want to point out what block elements are like. So I'm just going to make blue. So if you remembered how to make RGB blue with hex, that would be £. That would be, we know it's RGB, it should be 0000FF. That would be RGB blue. So I'll run it right now. You can see what happens there. Now, if I take away, I'm just going to do text align left. I'll put that left for now. I don't have to. I could actually just wipe this out. The default is actually left. So if I took that out, it would go back to its default. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to put my first CSS example, and it has a background color of blue. Now, no matter how far I make this, this is a block element. H1s are block elements. So are paragraphs. They're block elements, meaning they go across the page unless you give them some kind of a specific width. That's why when we give it a background color, the blue goes all the way across the page. So if I wanted a little darker blue right now, I could just make the blue a little darker. Instead of being FF, maybe I can make it DD. And now it's a little darker color. Maybe I'll go one more, I'll make it CC. So it's a little bit darker blue that we're working with. It looks a little nice, looks a little nicer with the cream color right now. Nice kind of warm, cool combination. So we have that color. We might use it again. Now, another thing that we're going to point out here is on our body element, we have background color. Now, you could see there's a slight margin around here. And I'm not sure how much it is. Well, I know how much it is. It's around 8 pixels. That's the default margin. And just for example, if I put margin on here, and now margin is basically the space outside an element that goes around, and we'll talk about that when we look at the individual elements. But if I put margin, and I'm just going to put 8 pixels right now, and I'll do 8px. When we use CSS, we have to do px, and we don't put a space. We do not do this. We do this. You can have a space here. You don't have to. This doesn't matter. That space doesn't matter, but this space does. You don't want a space there, because it needs to know that they go together. So I'm going to put a semicolon here just to finish it off, and that means margin 8 pixels. Now if I run it, it's probably not going to look any different, and it doesn't. How about if I make it 16 pixels? I'll run it, and now it does. Now it's a little more, because 8 pixels is its default, and 16 kind of, you finally start to see it a little bit. If I make it, maybe I'll make it like 24 pixels. Now you can see the difference. It's putting basically margin outside of this page, outside of the body right now. And you might say, well, what's padding then? Padding is space inside here. If you look at my first CSS example, you'll see that there's kind of, there is a little bit of padding, but that's actually just by default. You can see the P goes right down to the edge of the blue here, and it gets a little cramped in there. So just design-wise, if you did have a background color on that, you wouldn't want it right to the edge like that. So we're going to put some padding around our H1 element. And now padding, and I shouldn't say around, it's actually going to go inside the element. So if I go to H1 and I do something called padding, and you know, we can use pixels for now. Now we're not going to use like 24, but let's say we use like maybe like 6 pixels. I'll do 6px, and I'll use a semicolon, and I'll go run. And you can see what that does. It puts 6 pixels around, and maybe I'll make it just a little bit more. Actually, it looks so. Actually, 8 looks okay because of the way the letters are set up. It looks like there's not as much on the left, and there wouldn't, and it would be the same thing on the right. So one thing I want to point out for padding, when you use padding, it goes all around or all inside, and you can also use properties called padding left, padding right. So you could do this. You could do. I could put a padding underneath here, and I could say padding left. Maybe I'll do like 12 pixels for padding left, and I'll run it, And you can see what happens right now. Now it's saying padding 8, but then it's also doing padding left. It's putting pixels over there. So now this isn't really the appropriate way to be mixing all these. The way it should actually work, instead of doing a padding left, padding right, and all that, what we should do, because this means all, when you just do padding, what you could do is you could do something that means basically it goes like this. I'll make this little diagram. It goes top, right, bottom, left. That's the order it goes in. And people sometimes remember trouble. T-R-B-L. It would go top, right, bottom, left. So if we wanted to do padding, we would do top, and we'll leave it at 8 for the top, and then I can do a space. And now for the right, I'm going to do like 12 pixels, because that's what I'm going to do on the left, so I'll just keep it even. And then I'll do a space, and then it would be bottom, and I'll go back and I'll do 8 pixels. And then I'll do left, or this time it'll be 12 pixels. So remember again, it's top, right, bottom, left. Now when I run this, it actually looks like the way we had it last time. But that's what we want. We have 12 on the left, 12 on the right, and we have 8 on the top and 8 on the bottom. So remember, top, right, bottom, left. That's padding, and it's inside the element. If I put something called margin on here, what it would do, margin goes outside the element. You can see what it does. It actually puts space outside the element. And we'll talk about doing that, but margin goes outside, padding goes inside. It's kind of like an inset kind of value. And let me shorten this because we have some extra space in here, so I'll shorten that. So we did some kind of styling with our body. We changed the background color to cream. We gave it a margin of 24 pixels. And let me run this again to undo that last change I did. So this is a paragraph, and just to show that a paragraph is also a block element, I'm going to put a background color on that. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it on my paragraph, and maybe I'll do it kind of maybe a pink color. So like, let's say it was a pale pink color, like from your video about hex colors. Remember, what I like to do, if you want a real pale color, start off with all Fs. That means white. Okay, so we have all R, G, and B is all at white. So if you wanted pink, you could kind of go down on the other two, leave the red up and go down on the other two. So let's say you went down on the G, maybe you took that down to like D, and maybe you took the F down to like D, and you run it, and there we have a kind of a pink background color. If you wanted a little more maybe orangey, maybe you could even take down this one to like C or something, and it would start to get like a little warmer with the less blue you take away. So you kind of get the feel of how to work with these a little bit and try to work with them a little instead of just typing in colors. So same thing here, we're going to probably want some margin around here. Now this paragraph is bigger than the default. It has font size 20. I'm going to take this away for a second, and I'm going to run it, because this is the default font size, which is typically around 16 pixels. And to check that out, I'm going to go here and say font size, or I shouldn't have deleted the other one, but I'm going to go font size, and I'll put 16 pixels, and I'll see if it changes. And I'll hit run right now, and it doesn't change. So this is the 16 pixels font size to start. And what we'll also do is we'll put some padding on here, and I'll just copy this one. Again, there's no problem with copying and pasting things. Now this would probably be too much. If I ran this right now, that's too much. Let's make it a little bit less. What I'll do is I'll make it 10 on the top and 10 on the bottom. Remember, this goes top, right, bottom, left, and I'll run it right now. So now it gets a little bit more on there from the 8, so we have a little more space around there. And what we'll do next is we'll just try working with margin a little bit. So I'm going to hit return, and we'll put a margin. And this time we'll just do a margin left. We can do this if we're just using it one time. We'll do margin left, and let's just make it like 16 pixels. And I'll put a semicolon. And again, you can put a space here or not. You cannot put a space between 16 and here. If I did that, it doesn't do anything. Now if I take away the space, I run it, now it puts a little space here. So it puts a little margin. This is the margin that we put here for 16. So we have a 16 pixel margin. It's kind of indented a little bit by using margin left of that paragraph. And notice that it still goes across the page. So this is our first paragraph. So that's margin. Margin is outside, padding is inside. And I think what I'll do here is we'll take a little break and we'll continue on with part 3.